This story is about Bai Yi, the strongest awakener and captain of the Divine Legion. Betrayed by a trusted comrade, he was forced to watch his entire team die before his eyes. In that moment, he realized he had always been just a pawn of the corrupt rulers in power. But when everything seemed lost, fate gave him another chance. Reborn 20 years in the past, before his awakening, Bai Yi now sets out to protect his loved ones, take revenge on the betrayer, and destroy the system that once controlled him. This is the beginning of his lonely path to true strength. This world had magic, and because of it, countless demonic caves and demons were born. Magic also awakened certain people, known as the Awakened. God's Legion was the strongest awakened squad in this world, and the protagonist Bai Yi had led that team for 10 years. Their job was to assist the supreme authority, called God, and sweep away demon layers. The current lair was already their 100th high-level mission. It had been called the L-Rank Purification Mission. L-Rank was the highest difficulty. Standing before the SSS rank Demon King Belphegor, Bai Yi ordered the operation to begin. God's Legion lunged. God's Legion assassin Pao Le, an L-rank electric assassin. A woman with dark hair carrying 2 red daggers responded that she understood and slashed monsters in succession. God's Legion mage Han Xiaolin, an L-rank cloud mage, floated in the air and channeled his magic, freezing enemies with Glacier World. Bai Yi dashed forward and leaped at super speed, leaving a bright lightning trail behind him as the team prepared. Support Lu Xian, the L-rank galaxy conductor, cast his support spell Starfall Gravitational Pull on Bai Yi. The spell boosted Bai Yi's strength by plus 200%, his speed by plus 100%, and applied a gravity boost of 100x. His speed skyrocketed and his lightning trail grew brighter. The squad braced for impact. Bai Yi landed a direct vertical slash. Golden lightning crackled in the air long after the blade passed. A massive explosion followed, signaling the end of the monster. Bai Yi, God's Legion captain, and an L-rank nuclear element holy swordsman announced Belphegor's elimination complete. Han stretched and complained it ended too fast, calling it unsatisfying. Bao Lei smiled and promised she would find a few demon lairs to play around with him later. Lu Xian reminded them this mission had been top-rated and that the entire squad had been specially deployed. Bai Yi went quiet, serious, thinking through the situation. Lu Xian asked if the fight had been completed a bit too easily. While cleaning his sword, Bai Yi said the intel had described Belphegor as a special demon king with 5 elements and a hidden skill. Before he could finish, Bao Lei wrapped her arms around him. She whispered that they were getting a short break and asked whether he would treat everyone to a big meal or only them. Flustered, Bai Yi pushed her away and said they would all go to the holy city's usual spot. Bao Lei joked about missing her sneak attack. Han teased that Bai Yi didn't understand women. Then Bai Yi, serious, looked behind and asked whether that guy had followed them. Lu Xian said the missing member had claimed he was cleaning up the aftermath and hadn't made a move during the Belphegor fight. Bao Lei smirked and said he was always the slowest. Han agreed he was the biggest slacker. As they chatted, someone arrived at the demon lair. He wore a skeletal mask. He raised his hand, gathered magic around his fingers, and activated the purification mission. A projectile suddenly shot out and pierced Han Xiaolin's head, passing right through. Everyone froze, shocked. Han's body went down bloodied. His grimoire fell and got stained with blood as it scattered on the ground. The masked figure explained that this was the true mission given to him by God. Bai Yi clenched his teeth as faint green magic weighed on his body, and realized he couldn't move. The attacker said paralyzing powder had been mixed into their breakfast for the past month. Huge, numerous tendrils and branches rose and intertwined. It was a magic called God's skill forbidden tendrils, the mysterious figure's power. The tendrils grappled and wrapped around the team, completely immobilizing them. The figure said that to kill the strongest of them, he had to prepare first. Bai Yi, pinned and furious, demanded to know what was wrong and whether the attacker had taken the wrong medicine. Bao Lei shouted what he was doing. The magic's effect was to temporarily render enemies unconscious and strip away all defenses. The mysterious figure tightened the vines and declared this was God's will, that the L-rank purification mission was to purify all of them. Bao Lei and Lucian screamed in pain as the vines constricted. More vines shot from behind at high speed. Blood splashed everywhere as vines pierced the chests of both Bao Lei and Lucian. Bai Yi watched in horror. He shouted that God's legion had never acted out of line and demanded to know which god had the right to do this. The mysterious figure sneered and said Bai Yi was naive. Did there need to be a reason? In an instant, the attacker disappeared and reappeared in front of Bai Yi at high speed. With one strike, he pierced Bai Yi's chest. His hand went right through Bai Yi's body. Blood gushed from the wound. Through the blood, Bai Yi still asked how this could be. Hadn't they been comrades? They had been together for more than 10 years. Weren't they like family? The attacker pulled his hand from Bai Yi's chest and smirked. He said comrades and family were a lie. Bai Yi still didn't understand why the attacker was doing this. From the day they first met, God had already set up the game of chess. They had always been pawns. To gain their trust, he had been acting with them for so long. Then, making a gun-like gesture, the attacker said he felt disgusted. With a final strike, he took Bai Yi's head and killed him. Walking away from the bloodied, battered bodies of God's legion, the mysterious figure declared the mission complete. He announced the date May 22nd, 2125, and confirmed all members dead. L-rank purification mission complete. He finally could get a short break. But then Bai Yi heard a voice offering a deal. When Bai Yi opened his eyes, he was no longer in the demon lair. He was in a dark, mysterious space, chained by iron all around his body. He looked around in shock and asked where he was. A man called out to him, calling him handsome. The man wore a suit and radiated white, black, and gray energy. It was the Demon King Belphegor. Bai Yi, stunned, said Belphegor wasn't dead. Belphegor picked his ear and said, how could an SSS-ranked Demon King be so weak? He said this place was his soul space and that the entire Nai country was his true life. A huge dragon-like creature loomed, and intense gray and white energy swirled as Belphegor cut to the point. He said he could sense Bai Yi's hatred and offered a deal. His hidden skill was called reversion. Belphegor said reversion could send someone back to the distant past and give them a chance to salvage and change everything. He asked Bai Yi if he wanted that chance. Bai Yi thought about his party members and all the missions they had cleared together. Anger flared as memories of the masked figure and the bloodied bodies returned. Filled with rage, he broke the chains and vowed to kill the perpetrator and even the gods who had devised the plan. Belphegor smirked, saying Bai Yi's answer was not unexpected, and that it was enough. He said he would help one more time and told Bai Yi to consider it a welcoming gift. Belphegor took out a human heart as red, yellow, and blue energies swirled around it and placed it in front of Bai Yi. Bai Yi asked why Belphegor wanted to make a deal and what the price would be. Belphegor gave an evil smile, about to answer, but before Bai Yi could hear the price, he opened his eyes somewhere else. A woman yelled at him to wake up, calling his name and telling him to get his ass up. Bai Yi realized he had regressed to the past. It was the year 2015, at St. He Nation's subsidiary J Nation Awakener School, Junior High Division. He stared at his hands in shock and realized he had truly come back to the time before he awakened. The woman at the front of the class, Teacher Huang, shouted angrily. She said it was one thing for Bai Yi to mess around in class on normal days, but now he was still sleeping, even though the afternoon was the time for changing professions. She ordered him to go to the back and stand. Bai Yi looked at her in shock. He called out her name, Teacher Huang. Still stunned, he looked down at his hand and realized he had returned to junior high. As he walked past the students toward the back of the class, he thought to himself that he had actually been reborn. He wondered if this was Belphegor's ability. His classmates stared at him as he passed. Looking at their faces, Bai Yi thought it was unbelievable. These were classmates he hadn't seen in nearly 20 years. As he reached the back, Teacher Huang slammed her hand on the desk and told everyone to continue the lesson. She demanded the class pay attention. She explained that there were 5 elemental powers in the world: lightning, fire, cloud, core, and star. Each person could only contain one element. She raised her hand and released magic with a smug face. She declared that she, their teacher, possessed the rarest element, cloud. She continued her lecture, explaining that elemental powers combined with each person's body differently. Because of that, they were divided into 3 categories: combat, utility, and special. And from the mix of 5 elements with these categories, countless professions had emerged. She said their school's strongest guild was formed of a star mage, a cloud warrior, a core bard, and a lightning assassin. Addressing the students directly, she said she knew that out of hundreds of millions of people, they had already surpassed others as potential awakeners. Since childhood, they had been showered with flowers and applause in their prime. But her expression turned serious. She said this day was the most important in their lives. She explained that there were nearly 100 known awakened professions. They were ranked from lowest to highest in 4 qualities: dust, firefly, abyss, and sky glow. She reminded them that the opportunity to awaken a profession came only once. The students gasped in worry. Teacher Huang concluded that this afternoon, when their professions were determined, their future status in the world would also be decided. When the class ended, Bai Yi wandered around the school campus. Looking around, he thought about how much he missed this place. This was where he had first awakened. Suddenly, a kid with glasses stumbled near him. Bai Yi looked at him carefully, trying to recall his identity. At that moment, 3 ruffians arrived, smirking and sneering at both Bai Yi and the boy with glasses. One of the ruffians insulted them, saying they were just trash who needed external forces to awaken. He stepped on the boy's hand and mocked him for daring to block their way. He told him not to think he was special just because he was about to awaken. This ruffian was Hong Qiangsheng, an E-class star assassin, his background unknown. He slipped a hand into his pocket and radiated red energy, showing off his red quality profession. He bragged that in front of someone like him, the others would always be juniors. He bullied the boy with glasses, who offered him money. Watching this, Bai Yi recognized him. He thought this was indeed the school bully. In his previous life, Hong Qiangsheng often clashed with classmates. Bai Yi remembered that Hong had some kind of hypermale gene, always looking for trouble. As the bullying went on, Teacher Huang appeared. She reprimanded Hong Qiangsheng, demanding he stop. Her face was stern and angry as she told him this was a school and asked if he was trying to rob the student. Hong Qiangsheng smirked and replied casually. He claimed the boy had run into them. Waving the extorted money in front of her, he mocked that the boy should compensate his brother with milk tea. In his thoughts, he sneered even more. He said if not for her looks, he would have driven her out of the school already. Finally, the ruffians decided to leave. Hong Qiangsheng sneered, saying they would give the teacher some face and let bygones be bygones. After they left, Teacher Huang went to the bullied boy and asked if he was okay. Bai Yi stepped in front of Hong before he left, staring straight into his face. This angered Hong Qiangsheng. He placed his hand on Bai Yi's shoulder, sneered, and shoved him aside, asking what he was looking at. He told Bai Yi to move, and said they would come back later to laugh at the weaklings. After the ruffians left, the boy with glasses apologized to the teacher, saying it was his own carelessness. Teacher Huang told him he had done nothing wrong. Bai Yi looked at her and thought about how she was sharp-tongued but soft-hearted. In his previous life, she had helped him a lot after he awakened. At that moment, another teacher came and called out to her, saying it was her class's turn to enter the awakening chamber. The students began moving in groups. Teacher Huang reminded them to stay calm inside the chamber and maintain their sanity to avoid injury. As Bai Yi walked toward the chamber with the others, he thought about the ways awakening happened. One way was natural awakening, like Hong Qiangsheng's. It usually happened to those with strong physiques and talent, triggered during extreme emotion. The second way was through the awakening spatial chamber. This was the crystallization of scientists' wisdom. Inside it, a person's emotions and adrenaline would be pushed to the limit, awakening their potential. But because a person could only awaken once, and the result was random, this was the only chance in life to determine fate. When they arrived, Teacher Huang called Bai Yi forward, telling him it was his turn. She told him to focus and not act like he did in class. She said he needed to concentrate. Bai Yi walked past her with a cold, calculated look. He told her he knew what he was doing. Inside, he thought about his previous life. Back then, he had awakened as an E-class core warrior, a dust-grade profession. Because of that, he had often been bullied. Only much later, when he advanced to S-class, had he gained the rarest type. He entered the chamber and wondered what profession he would awaken this time. He thought his element should still be core. Looking around, he saw different colored papers with trails of energy swirling around him. But suddenly, a system notice appeared. It said there was an awakening system detection error. Bai Yi grew agitated as golden energy radiated from his body. Another message appeared. 5 elements detected. Clutching his chest, Bai Yi was shocked at the heat building inside him. A third message appeared. A system window appeared, showing the progression of all of Bai Yi's elemental powers. It explained that because he possessed 5 elemental types in his body, he could choose to activate any class from any element as his initial profession. After that, once a certain element accumulated enough energy, he would be able to either acquire a new random class for that element or upgrade his existing class. Seeing this, Bai Yi's jaw dropped in shock and awe. He asked himself what that meant. Element accumulation. He realized that not only could he choose the element and class he had just awakened, but he could also acquire other new classes later. He imagined himself obtaining Dust Tier, Firefly Tier, Abyss Tier, Sky Tier, all qualities, even that special quality class. The system confirmed that this was right, but reminded him that only the initial class could be chosen freely. All the other classes afterward would be acquired randomly. Bai Yi remembered the gift from Belphegor, the heart that contained all elemental powers. Realizing this, he clenched his chest where his heart was, and thought that maybe it was still alive, and this was the power it had brought him. Thinking of all the possibilities, he exclaimed in satisfaction that this was the power of infinite awakening. The system then explained that after selecting his initial class, all element bars would be cleared and told him to choose carefully. Bai Yi smirked with the realization that he knew exactly what he had to choose. Outside the awakening chamber, students were grumbling, complaining about why he was taking so long in there. At that moment, Bai Yi finally stepped out. Teacher Huang quickly approached him with excitement and asked what class he had awakened. Bai Yi shrugged and calmly replied that he was sorry to disappoint them. With a slight smirk, he said he had awakened as a nuclear warrior, the worst green quality class. Teacher Huang gave a sad, disappointed look and began to reply. But then she quickly changed her mood to happy and encouraging. She said that it was fine because even with green quality, many extraordinary talents had emerged. Putting her hand on Bai Yi's shoulder, she told him not to give up and reassured him that the world would not let him down. Bai Yi replied that she didn't need to comfort him. Teacher Huang sighed and said she knew he must be feeling bad inside. Pushing him gently, she smiled and told him to go rest quickly, since awakening must have taken a lot out of him. Just then, Hong Qiangsheng came up. He laughed and mocked Bai Yi, saying he was dying of laughter. He ridiculed Teacher Huang's words about working hard and claimed they were nothing but useless, toxic positivity. He sneered at her and said that as a teacher she should know better. Hearing this, both Teacher Huang and Bai Yi glared at Hong Qiangsheng in anger. Hong Qiangsheng pointed his finger at Bai Yi and mocked him again, saying reality wasn't like that at all. Coming closer to Bai Yi, he said that dust tier quality meant being at the very bottom. He grinned evilly and whispered that this was how the world really worked. God only chose the strong, while the weak were meant to be humiliated. Hearing this, Bai Yi grew angry, remembering how he and his friends had been treated in his previous life. Teacher Huang's face turned cold as she demanded to know why Hong Qiangsheng was there again. With a mocking laugh, he explained that everyone knew dust-tier awakeners had to sit in the back row from then on. He said that was just how society worked. Those without strength, background, or future would always be abandoned, while the strongest got better resources and became even stronger. He declared that dust-tier weaklings were destined from the moment of awakening to be nothing more than low-level grunts among awakeners. With a grin, Hong Qiangsheng asked, what was this nonsense about changing life through hard work, or dust-tier awakeners being called geniuses? He asked if Teacher Huang even believed those words herself. He compared it to everyone's birth, saying a person's future was already decided from the start. He added that the Awakener School was just a microcosm of society itself. Moving closer to Teacher Huang, he smirked and said that since she was Firefly tier, she could only be a freeloading good-for-nothing at school. Hong Qiangsheng then stretched his hand, trying to pour his drink on Bai Yi. He mocked him again, saying that dust-tier awakeners should just go home early and not waste government resources. But right then, Bai Yi grabbed the cup and crushed it in his hand. The drink splashed all over Hong Qiangsheng. Hong Qiangsheng shouted angrily, asking what he was doing. Bai Yi casually jerked his hand and replied that he simply didn't like listening to him. Wiping his face, Hong Qiangsheng smirked, then burst out laughing hysterically. The next moment, he gathered energy in his hand and went for a punch, shouting that Bai Yi was dead. Teacher Huang tried to stop him but was unable to. The attack was the Star Assassin's normal skill, Star's Thorn Thrust, carrying attack power. Hong Qiangsheng closed in with a grin, saying Bai Yi was asking for death. At the same time, Bai Yi charged energy in his hand and braced for impact. As Hong Qiangsheng's strike reached him, a golden sword suddenly materialized in Bai Yi's hand and blocked the attack. Hong Qiangsheng clenched his teeth in astonishment, unable to believe what just happened. Before he could react, Bai Yi retaliated with another attack, Geu. With a swift swing, Bai Yi launched Hong Qiangsheng flying backward. Golden trails followed the arc of the strike as Hong Qiangsheng crashed hard on the ground some distance away, sliding across it. The commotion attracted attention. Teacher Huang was visibly shocked by what she had just seen. Hong Qiangsheng coughed blood from his mouth, staring at Bai Yi in disbelief and asking himself how this had happened. The other students were equally stunned, gasping and asking how Bai Yi did that. Resting his sword on his shoulder, Bai Yi calmly said he had chosen this class himself. He explained that Nuclear Warrior came with a basic light sword, attack plus 20, and evasion plus 20. With a sly smirk, he added that he had simply gotten used to using it. Hong Qiangsheng got up from the ground, insisting that Bai Yi had just been lucky and dodged by chance. With an angry face, he shouted that he was a rare abyss tier and completely different from low-level trash like Bai Yi. Teacher Huang thought to herself that it couldn't have been luck. She realized Bai Yi had just used the warrior class's exclusive, top-tier movement technique, Gewu. She recalled that Gewu allowed someone to block damage the moment it received a maximum attack, and within 0.09 seconds reflect all physical damage back to the opponent, a reaction faster than extreme human reflexes. She explained to herself that when block timing was accurate, it could nullify 100% of damage, and if triggered again within 0.09 seconds, there was a chance to reflect all damage back. She remembered that even her own teacher couldn't master this technique after 10 years of grueling training. Yet Bai Yi, someone who had just awakened today with no combat experience, had done it. Hong Qiangsheng then pulled out a blade and, with an evil grin, asked if Bai Yi was ready to die. The Star Assassin class came with a bayonet, attack plus 30, and speed plus 30. He shouted that he would make Bai Yi grovel in front of everyone. With a calm expression, Bai Yi thought to himself that choosing this seemingly weakest class had been deliberate. He knew that judging someone's fate from birth was a serious mistake, one that others would only realize years later. As both Bai Yi and Hong Qiangsheng prepared their stances, energy began radiating from their weapons. The surrounding students whispered among themselves, saying that using awakened powers for private brawls was strictly forbidden by the school, especially with so many people watching. They also pointed out that Hong Qiangsheng's father was a high-ranking official, and his uncle was the school's dean, while Bai Yi's family was dirt poor with no background. The boy with glasses started to panic. He thought that if Bai Yi took the bait and fought here, he would be expelled. Looking to Teacher Huang, he wondered desperately what they should do. Teacher Huang, wearing a concerned expression, stepped between the two, trying to defuse the situation. She reminded them that everyone had just awakened that very day and said they might one day fight together as comrades. She urged them not to be rash and tried to suggest a compromise. But before she could finish, Hong Qiangsheng shouted angrily. He declared that Bai Yi had provoked him in front of everyone, and there was no way he would simply let it go. Pointing his blade at Bai Yi, Hong Qiangsheng grinned hysterically, saying it was useless even if Bai Yi knelt and begged for forgiveness now. He vowed to make him understand the difference between the chosen and a loser, an insurmountable chasm. Seeing the situation spinning out of control, Teacher Huang grew nervous. In her mind, she admitted that Hong Qiangsheng was right about the difference in qualities. She recalled that a dust rank quality's attribute bonus was only 100%, which meant no change at all, while a glimmer rank of the same profession gained a 150% bonus, and an abyss rank received 200%. From the moment of awakening, an abyss rank's attributes were already double that of a dust rank. This was a chasm in power that could never be overcome. The boy with glasses, looking at Bai Yi, thought it was over. In terms of both power and background, Bai Yi was completely crushed by his opponent. With a sad expression, he adjusted his glasses and thought further. He wondered why Bai Yi would go so far as to offend someone much stronger than him. But he also thought that in a society like this, survival meant learning to avoid such people. And when avoiding them wasn't possible, one had to swallow humiliation. Only those who could bend and yield would endure. A direct confrontation, he thought, was the most foolish choice, leading only to greater humiliation. Hong Qiangsheng then activated his skill, Ferocity, which gave him a 32% boost to strength, a 20% increase to critical hit rate, and a 15% boost to lifesteal. He lunged straight at Bai Yi. Teacher Huang, her face filled with concern, stretched out her hand and shouted for Bai Yi to watch out. In her thoughts, she wondered if he planned to block again. But the parry skill consumed massive amounts of stamina, and Hong Qiangsheng's attack power and speed were far too high. She believed it was over and thought there was no way Bai Yi could block this. In the next instant, Hong Qiangsheng appeared in front of Bai Yi, swinging his weapon at tremendous speed and releasing a burst of energy. But Bai Yi only smirked faintly. In his thoughts, he questioned why he should bother dodging. Just before Hong Qiangsheng could land his attack, Bai Yi activated the skill Swiftness, which temporarily increased speed by more than 50%. The exact boost depending on reaction time and proficiency. Immediately after, he triggered another skill, Flash Blink. This ability could be used when swiftness proficiency reached 100%, allowing the user to instantly create a flash effect and pass through obstacles ahead. In an instant, Bai Yi disappeared and reappeared behind Hong Qiangsheng. His movement was so fast that only traces of golden energy lingered in the air where he once stood. Hong Qiangsheng was shocked, wondering when Bai Yi had gotten behind him. But before he could process it, blood gushed from his mouth as he collapsed to the ground, writhing in pain. As Hong Qiangsheng lay on the ground, Bai Yi smirked faintly and thought to himself that trash belonged in the trash can. The surrounding students were stunned. Some murmured to each other, unsure of what they had just seen. To them it looked as though Hong Qiangsheng had simply fallen over on his own. Some even wondered if he had slipped. The boy with glasses stopped panicking and laughed mockingly, questioning how Hong Qiangsheng could have just fallen like that. Even Teacher Huang admitted with a confused look that she hadn't seen clearly what had happened. The class president, Qin Yin, a girl with pink hair, carefully analyzed the fight. Observing closely, she realized that in the moment Hong Qiangsheng attacked, Bai Yi had activated the warrior's unique skill Swiftness, but in its advanced form, Flash Blink. She then wondered what he had done in that instant to injure his opponent. She concluded that Bai Yi had not only mastered the highest level usage of a warrior's basic skills, but he was also able to apply them seamlessly in real combat. And in that split second, he had even considered not breaking the school's rules in public. Qin Yin's thoughts echoed in disbelief. She wondered what in the world had happened to Bai Yi. Right then, system messages popped up in front of Bai Yi. The notifications said he had gained experience, 50 Profession EXP, with his current Level 1 experience, now at 50 out of 1,000. He also received Elemental Accumulation points, gaining 50 Astro Element points for dealing a critical blow to an E-Class Astro Element opponent. Bai Yi realized that fighting with his profession earned him profession experience, and defeating opponents of certain elements granted elemental points. However, he also noted that the points gained were far too little. He concluded that he needed to start clearing labyrinths as soon as possible. Just then, Hong Qiangsheng staggered back to his feet, groveling in pain. He shouted at Bai Yi, telling him not to think about leaving. Picking up his weapon, he lunged from behind, threatening to kill him. But before the attack could land, a voice rang out, commanding them to stop. Both Bai Yi and Hong Qiangsheng looked toward the source of the voice and saw Hong Liang, the dean of the Awakening Academy's Junior High Division. Standing tall and firm, the dean looked at Hong Qiangsheng and told him he had already made a big enough fool of himself. Hong Qiangsheng, recognizing him, addressed him as his uncle and tried to explain himself. Meanwhile, Bai Yi also recognized the person and thought about who he was. The dean ordered all the students to disperse. He reminded them that after awakening, everyone must be tired. Since it was the weekend, he instructed them to head home early and inform their families about the professions they had awakened. Turning angrily to Bai Yi, the dean demanded to know if he was aware that the school strictly prohibited such actions. But upon hearing the word home, Bai Yi suddenly panicked. He realized that after being reborn, it hadn't even registered at first. Since he had returned 20 years into the past, that meant his family was still alive. But he remembered that on Awakening Day, May 22nd, 2105, something else had happened. Clutching his head in panic, he cursed himself for forgetting such an important matter. Seeing him act strangely, the dean called out in confusion. But Bai Yi continued his thoughts, realizing this was the most important thing. Without hesitation, he dashed forward, leaving the dean and the others stunned. The dean grew angry at this and pointed at teacher Huang, ordering her to get her student under control. He said he would pretend nothing had happened today and would not pursue the matter further. Teacher Huang bowed nervously and apologized. Sometime later, inside the dean's office, Hong Qiangsheng stood before his uncle. Angrily, he complained that if Bai Yi hadn't gotten lucky, there was no way he would have lost. But the dean slammed his hand on the table and shouted that it was nonsense. Recalling the battle, the dean explained that the moment Hong Qiangsheng had charged, Bai Yi had used the high-level skill Flash Blink. But more importantly, in that split second just before contact, Bai Yi had located the weakest point on Hong Qiangsheng's body and struck it hard enough to completely shatter his defense. Looking sternly at him, the dean added that the entire sequence of moves had been done using only a warrior's basic skills. Yet even he, with 15 years of battlefield experience, could not necessarily execute them with such proficiency. Hearing this, Hong Qiangsheng was left baffled. The dean continued, saying the fight was as ridiculous as watching a pro-gamer toy with a max-level elementary schooler using only basic controls. He warned that Bai Yi was not as simple as he seemed. Meanwhile, Bai Yi ran hysterically through the streets. As he ran, he thought to himself that besides revenge, there was something else he absolutely must do after being reborn. Arriving in front of an apartment, he concluded that this was it, something he must stop from happening, even if it cost him his life. Panting heavily, he was struck by vivid flashbacks of his past life, where he lay bloodied and terrified on the floor while a killer rampaged. May 22nd, 2105, 1807. Bai Yi's father sat in front of the television watching a show. He laughed hysterically, finding it hilarious. Bai Yi's mother was in the kitchen washing dishes, while Bai Yi stood nervously at the doorway, overwhelmed at the sight of his mother again. When he stepped inside, his father casually mentioned that he was back early and asked if his classes had ended sooner than usual. For Bai Yi, seeing his mother alive again after 20 years, filled his eyes with tears. He thought to himself how glad he was that she was still here. As he came closer, his mother used sign language to communicate. She told him she had made his favorite hot and sour noodles. Bai Yi, holding back tears, insisted instead that he wanted to eat pickled fish that day. She signed back that maybe tomorrow, because she had already prepared hot and sour noodles. But Bai Yi pressed harder, saying he really needed to have pickled fish today. With a sigh, his mother called him impossible. While he kept insisting she go with him, his father interjected. The father said she could go by herself, and then smirked, asking what was wrong with Bai Yi for not even greeting his own father. Bai Yi's father stood up, came closer, and reminded him that today was supposed to be his awakening day. He asked about the results, and went to the fridge, pulling out beer bottles. He said he had finished work early and returned just to celebrate. This man was Bai Ling Sheng, Bai Yi's father, level 26, C-class. An electric warrior with an attribute boost of 400%. Bai Yi, keeping a serious face, replied that he had not awakened. He explained that he had been unlucky, that the amending process had taken too long, and they hadn't even made it in time. The father's expression turned angry. He asked why Bai Yi had returned so early then, and pointed out that Da Lei's son had awakened as in Glimmer rank class. Both of them were worthless. As Bai Yi stood silently, his father pressed harder. He shouted that his son should at least awaken as an Abyss rank class. He reminded Bai Yi that back in his own day, he had awakened as an Abyss rank with nothing and worked his tail off to support the family. He said he had poured everything into raising Bai Yi. Bai Ling Sheng came right up to his son, sinister red energy emanating from his body. He demanded that Bai Yi speak and reveal his class. Bai Yi, keeping his serious expression, said he hadn't. But before he could finish, his father smashed a beer bottle on his head, spilling it all over him. With a grim face, the father declared his son a dust rank, as if he already knew the result. Then he shouted angrily, asking if Bai Yi had gone to school pretending to be diligent only to awaken into something so useless. He raged that his son had disgraced him. Bai Yi, standing there, thought to himself that his father might be unawakened, but he was also a violent man who could not control his emotions. Before Bai Yi could even react, his father kicked him, throwing him to the ground. Lying there, Bai Yi recalled. He thought about how much time had passed, and how he had almost forgotten what had happened on his awakening day, May 22nd, 2105, in his previous life. Back then, when his father found out he had awakened as a dust rank, he had felt so ashamed that he started a fight at home. As always, his mother had stood in front of him. But back then, Bai Yi had been too afraid. His father beat his mother for a full hour to vent his rage. That day, her leg had been broken, and a heavy blow to the head left her mentally unstable. Now, in this life, Bai Yi had only awakened as an E-class nuclear warrior. He had chosen that class for its special traits, but he still needed time. Meanwhile, his father was a C-class Abyss rank with real combat experience, unlike Hongqiang Sheng at school. Bai Yi knew he couldn't beat him yet. His father had even come home early to wait for him, and Bai Yi realized he wouldn't stop until he had a result. So at least, Bai Yi thought, he had managed to get his mother out of the house. But as Bai Yi was thinking this, his father grabbed him by the hair and punched him across the face. At that moment, his mother returned. Seeing her back so soon, Bai Yi was horrified. He realized she must have come back to feed him. He wondered why she had returned so early. When she saw the scene before her, his mother was utterly horrified. The father, exuding crimson energy, stepped in front of her. With anger in his voice, he said she was back, and he asked what kind of trash she had given birth to. Inside a jail, one man spoke. He said he had heard that Bai Yi was the first green-tier profession advancer. Normally, a profession needed to be at least blue tier and reach A rank to even qualify for the advancement stage. Yet Bai Yi advanced so early, and not only that, he directly transformed from green tier into the 1-in-a-million platinum tier. Sitting in front of Bai Yi, the man asked why he had been arrested and brought here, since this was the place reserved for death row inmates. Bai Yi murmured quietly to himself, saying the man deserved to die, asking how he could beat his mother to death like that. But suddenly, Bai Yi was pulled back from his flashback. Right then his father swung his hand and hit him, throwing Bai Yi onto the floor. Bai Yi spat blood from his mouth as he laid there. He reflected to himself that a skilled awakened, even without using skills, was much stronger than an ordinary person. An ordinary person could never withstand such a punch. As Bai Yi lay bloodied on the floor, his mother rushed to his side, trying to cover him and stop his father. Bai Yi's father smirked and spoke to her. He said that the day he found out she was pregnant with a son, he had been truly happy. Grabbing a chair and exuding red energy, he continued speaking. He said he thought that was the chance for the Bai family to rise again. Dragging the chair, he added that the other two brats couldn't even produce a son, but he, Bai Lingsheng, could. Bringing his face closer to Bai Yi's mother, he shouted in anger that the Bai family still had to rely on him to bring glory to their ancestors. But now, why did their son awaken with the trashiest green-tier profession? Swinging the chair at Bai Yi's mother, he shouted that their son was nothing but a piece of trash who couldn't even advance, and it was all because of her trashy genes. Bai Yi's mother braced for the impact as the father swung the chair down. But before the attack could land, Bai Yi used his flash blink skill. He dashed forward with speed, positioning himself in front of his mother, and blocked and reflected the attack. The chair shattered and flew away. The father was hurled back from the force of Bai Yi's counter. Holding a sword and exuding green energy, Bai Yi glared angrily and told his father not to touch her. Seeing a small cut appear on his arm, the father smirked playfully and said it was interesting. His mother, utterly terrified, tried to stop them with frantic sounds since she could not speak. Bai Yi's father adjusted his neck and smirked, saying it was good, very good, that Bai Yi had finally grown up. Bai Yi held his sword in a defensive stance and thought to himself that he needed a little more time. He had to block his father first. But before he could finish that thought, his father charged forward at super speed and appeared right in front of him. As the father attacked, Bai Yi quickly used his skill, parry. However, his weapon broke on impact from his father's attack. Bai Yi was shocked. The punch struck his chest, breaking his sword, and blood gushed from his mouth. He thought to himself that his father's strength broke through directly. The power gap was several-fold. His ribs hurt so badly it felt like they were about to break. As another punch was incoming, Bai Yi crossed his hands to block. His father swung with full force, using heavy lightning, a technique of tremendous speed that imbued all attacks with electric shock. He taunted Bai Yi, asking if he was already defying his esteemed father. Red energy filled the room as Bai Yi took a blocking stance, gritting his teeth and bracing for the impact. His mother was utterly horrified by the scene. With an evil grin, the father delivered the attack, mocking that Bai Yi was too impatient. Bai Yi thought to himself that he absolutely would not dodge, and blocked the strike with all he had. Seeing this, his father looked annoyed and said Bai Yi had some backbone, but what good was it with such a weak profession? He said Bai Yi deserved to be beaten to death. Covering his face with one hand, Bai Yi clenched his teeth and swore to himself that in this life he would not let any tragedy repeat itself. The father grabbed another chair and shouted at Bai Yi, asking if he thought he was hot stuff just because he awakened. Swinging the chair down, he said Bai Yi could not even tell who was the boss anymore. His mother tried desperately to shield Bai Yi. But right then a sudden knock came at the door. A voice demanded the door be opened immediately. Hearing this, the father turned back annoyed, cursing at who could ruin the mood at a time like this. As Bai Yi's mother hugged him, Bai Yi thought to himself that they had arrived. The father angrily opened the door, shouting about who it was and why they were knocking. Two men stood at the door. They were Inspectorate Deputy Captain, Red A rank, Divine Priest, Liang, and Inspectorate Investigator, Blue C rank, Divine Priest, Chen Jinwu. Liang said he wondered why no one was opening the door after so long, and asked what they had been so busy with. The father sneered, asking why the deputy captain was here. Showing a photo of a wanted criminal, Liang explained they had received a report that the wanted criminal, Snow, had appeared near this building. They were now conducting a house-to-house search and asked if anyone suspicious had been noticed. The father tried to distract the issue and pretended to laugh, saying the man was on TV every day. He said if snow appeared, he would definitely report it. Looking at Bai Yi, the deputy captain inquired about him, asking how his son was. But before he could finish, the father quickly placed a hand on the deputy captain's shoulder and explained that his stupid kid had just been careless, even falling while going to buy groceries. He said the deputy captain did not need to worry about such a small matter. But right then, Bai Yi spoke up. He said directly that no, his father had hit him. Bai Yi thought back to what he had done just 18 minutes ago, downstairs. He had made a call saying that he saw someone enter Building A of ZU Mansion, looking exactly like Snow as published online. He recalled that the call he made at the small shop across the street, before going upstairs, had led the inspection team to check this floor. Now, if the security team received news about Snow, they would definitely mobilize collectively. He hadn't expected them to investigate so quickly, but he knew there was still enough time. Deputy Captain Li Ang looked at Bai Yi's father with suspicion and asked if what Bai Yi said was true. Nervously, his father replied that Bai Yi was just kidding. He asked how he could possibly lay a hand on his own son, his heartache, but before he could finish, Bai Yi interrupted. He revealed that his arm had been hit by a stool and his head had been struck with a wine bottle. Showing the bruises where he had been punched and kicked, he added that his injuries could be assessed for severity right now. He cited the Divine Canon Awakened Management Regulation, Chapter 8, Article 4, which clearly stated that if an awakened one could not control violent behavior and posed a potential danger, they must be detained immediately and imprisoned for 15 days in the awakened prison. Hearing the clarity and knowledge in Bai Yi's words, both officers were shocked. His father, Bai Lingsheng, looked back angrily, grinning, and muttered about Bai Yi's brain. But right then, the deputy captain cut him off and formally introduced himself. He declared that as Li Ang from the inspection team, he was now lawfully arresting Bai Lingsheng. He reminded him that he had the right to remain silent. Hearing this, Bai Yi's father exploded in rage and tried to lunge at his son while cursing him, but another officer quickly stopped him. Holding him firmly, the officer warned that if he resisted, they would take control measures. Bai Lingsheng was then escorted out by the officers, while Bai Yi and his mother stood silently. The next moment, his mother rushed into his arms and hugged him. Bai Yi comforted her, saying it was okay now. Smiling faintly, he thought to himself that he had protected his mom this time. With his father detained for 15 days, there was enough time for him to become stronger. He told himself he wouldn't take this beating for nothing. Bai Yi then recalled how he had swiped the safe key from his father. Looking at it, he thought about that one thing his father hadn't hesitated to backstab his own teammates for. It was the very item that had allowed him to climb step by step from the bottom of E-class to reach C-class today. Sometime later, Bai Yi found the safe and sat in front of it. He thought about how it was always hidden in the most secret place inside his father's room, kept hidden even from his family. Opening the safe, he remembered that in his previous life, he had only learned of this item's existence after his father's death. Inside, he found a dagger. Staring at it, Bai Yi thought that with this weapon he could try soloing a demon den. After some time, Bai Yi appeared in front of an abandoned building. It was a hidden demon den. Standing outside, he thought that currently only demon dens could upgrade professions. But now all demon dens were under the jurisdiction of the guilds, and anyone not in a guild group couldn't enter. The only dens he could access now were those managed by the school, and this hidden demon den he knew about from his previous life. He resolved to move at the fastest speed, to surpass everyone. Later, on May 22nd, 2105, Friday, 2202, inside the inspectorate detention room, officers were discussing. They said that this time their entire police guard team had been alarmed, and even the vice captain had been dispatched, yet they hadn't seen anything. They wondered if it had been a false alarm. Still, whether it was real or not, they knew they must never relax when it came to matters related to the rebels. If snow really appeared in their country on the anniversary day, it would cause huge problems. Inside his cell, Bai Yi's father shouted for the vice captain, begging for leniency. He insisted this was his first time and that he would never do it again. Trying to flatter, he even mentioned that he heard the vice captain's wife was about to give birth, and that his buddies owned the best postnatal care center in Churi County. The vice captain glared at him with an angry face and asked if he was really still trying to bribe the inspection team. He reminded him that once he had been a member of the guild, no matter what. Stepping outside, he added how pitiful it was to see him fall to this point today. But before he could continue, another officer cut in, reminding that if the bribery attempt was discovered, it would not just be detention. He said that tomorrow, Bai Lingsheng would be transferred to the awakened prison and told him to cool his heels there for a while. Hearing this, Bai Yi's father became furious, his body radiating with crimson-red energy. He muttered Bai Yi's name under his breath with deep anger. Meanwhile, Bai Yi himself was thinking that in 15 days, his father would be released from prison. Before that, he had to grow stronger as quickly as possible. The demon den was currently his only option. Demon dens could appear anywhere. They were another dimension parallel to their world, entered through gates that appeared out of nowhere. Once discovered, most demon dens were stationed and controlled by guilds. Inside them were large numbers of demonic beasts and demon minerals, valuable resources that made them the best choice for awakened ones to enhance their abilities. But demon dens were extremely dangerous. Usually, a team would only enter after official inspection. Entering the abandoned building, Bai Yi continued his thoughts. He recalled that in his previous life, this particular demon lair had only been reported in the news 5 years later. Because it had been abandoned for so long, it was never detected. It was only discovered after the demon race invaded the human world. He reminded himself that an F-rank lair generally required 3 E-rank awakened ones, while A-rank lairs usually required a team of 5 3 E-rank and 2 D-rank awakened ones. Based on the current time and conditions, he estimated that there was a 90% chance this dungeon was E-rank, the lowest level hidden dungeon he could currently access. Reaching the entrance of the undiscovered dungeon, Bai Yi saw red energy swirling everywhere. As he stepped inside, he thought about how demon lairs were fraught with danger, and why normally awakened ones would team up with people of various elements and professions to increase their odds of survival. But he knew he had no other choice. He had to get stronger on his own, and at the fastest possible rate. Walking deeper inside the lair, Bai Yi shivered from the cold. He realized the entire area was covered in ice and snow, which meant it was likely the territory of ice element monsters. Soon, he spotted a large white bear with crystals embedded in its body. Scattered around were skeletons of humans, clear victims of the beast. Bai Yi recognized it immediately. It was a hibernating beast, an icefield bear, E8 rank. He realized there was a 10% chance of being spotted. This was indeed an E-rank demon lair. He wondered if the reason it hadn't been discovered yet was because most of the beasts inside were still hibernating. But just then, a wolf-like monster suddenly lunged at him from behind. At the last moment, Bai Yi managed to dodge the attack. Seeing it, he realized that even a single wolf's level was higher than his own. The wolf lunged again, baring its sharp teeth. Bai Yi blocked the strike with his weapon and pushed it back.
The wolf growled viciously at him. In the next moment, Bai Yi dashed forward at high speed and slashed it clean in half. Looking down at the weapon in his hands, he thought about how this A-rank weapon hidden in his father's safe could never be bought on the market. It had come at the perfect time, filling the gap in his current combat power. This was the A-rank weapon, the Kunwu blade. Forged from Kunwu stone, it was extremely sharp, able to cut through iron like mud. Still, Bai Yi thought about the hidden defense of demonic beasts. Even with this weapon, hitting vital points still required 3 to 4 strikes to finish them off. He sighed, thinking he was already starting to miss the days when he was L rank. Just then a system window appeared. It announced that experience had increased, and Bai Yi had gained 52 personal experience points. His level 1 progress was now 102 out of 1,000. Elemental accumulation had also increased. Defeating an E-level Cloud Element opponent earned him 50 Cloud Element points. He also gained a Snow Wolf tooth. Looking at the window, Bai Yi thought about how leveling up as an E-level profession probably required killing 20 wolves, and that advancing from E to D would take at least 10 levels. But then numerous wolf monsters appeared in front of him, growling ferociously. Standing before them, Bai Yi realized the smell of blood had attracted them all. They were already surrounding him and preparing to gang up on him. Bai Yi lunged straight into the pack of wolves, his attacks sharp and precise. He dodged their strikes, countered swiftly, and landed critical blows to their vital points. With each motion, he killed them one by one. Spinning in midair, golden energy formed a vortex around his body. He dashed with incredible speed, cutting down multiple wolves in succession. System notifications appeared in front of him. Successfully killed the bloodthirsty forest wolf. Gained 52 experience. Obtained Snow Wolf Fangs X18. But the Wolf King still remained. The bloodthirsty Wolf King, a level 4, E-rank cloud-type demonic beast, stood before Bai Yi and growled fiercely. Bai Yi lunged forward, his sword flashing multiple times at high speed. Only golden trails of slashes could be seen as the Wolf King cried out in pain. A system window appeared. Successfully killed the bloodthirsty Wolf King. Gained 56 experience. Panting with exhaustion, Bai Yi thought that this should be enough to smoothly upgrade to Drank. Another system notification followed. Level 1 experience, 1094, 1000. Upgrade to Level 2. E-rank. Gained 12 stat points. Please distribute them. Touching the system screen, Bai Yi muttered to himself in frustration. Even after killing just 20 wolves, he was already this tired. His E-rank body's stamina was still too poor. He then began picking up the drops. Among them, he found a Snow Wolf diamond, an extremely sturdy diamond that could be used to craft weapons with special materials. Its market price was approximately 10,000 yuan. Bai Yi sighed. Without a dimensional backpack, he would be forced to abandon many valuable drops. Most demon dens were monopolized by guilds, making it difficult for solo awakeners to farm effectively in the wild. As he walked deeper into the demon den, he reflected. To gain access to higher-level dens, joining the Guild of Gods was the only option. The Awakener School was controlled by the Guild and used to screen talents for their teams. For most students, the ultimate goal was to graduate and be selected by the Guild. But if one was ever kicked out of a Guild team, it often meant the end of their growth forever. Thinking about his father, Bai Yi remembered how, after being expelled from his Guild team, his father had remained stuck at C rank for the rest of his life. Suddenly, Bai Yi sensed something approaching. He turned sharply and realized that at his current speed, he was still too slow to handle this alone. The cold temperature here was also draining his stamina faster. He came up with a plan and began running at full speed. The wolves chased closely behind him. As he ran, Bai Yi cut down numerous trees in his path, letting them fall and block the pursuing wolves. The commotion quickly drew the attention of more monsters. Hordes of bloodthirsty demon wolves and even a massive cloud python appeared. Then, behind the monsters, a huge explosion shook the cavern. Looking at the blast seriously, Bai Yi thought that the noise had woken up the rest of the monsters. It was time to resolve this quickly. He was certain that someone else should have awakened by now as well. Just then, the ceiling of the den collapsed. A colossal tundra bear crashed onto the floor. This beast was a B-level, giant-class, cloud-type demonic monster. It had entered a furious state, which increased its damage by 20%. The tundra bear roared and began attacking indiscriminately, lashing out at every target nearby. Bai Yi's eyes sharpened. The furious state meant the bear would strike anything in sight without distinction. He immediately took advantage of the situation. Dodging the bear, he finished off the wounded monsters that had already been mauled by its rampage. While slashing them down, Bai Yi analyzed calmly. Although B-rank beasts were fierce, they lacked intelligence. The bear not only attracted aggro, but it also helped him save more than half his stamina. However, the experience would only count if he delivered the final blow. Panting heavily, Bai Yi crouched, his body exhausted. Still, he raised his weapon with both hands. It was time to enter the next phase. After causing such widespread destruction, the environment itself was about to collapse. The monsters charged, and Bai Yi slammed his weapon into the ground. The entire battlefield trembled. Cracks spread as the bridge they were fighting on began to collapse. Bai Yi had been observing the environment from the start. This wasn't a frozen lake surface as it first appeared. It was actually a massive bridge suspended between two canyons. As the bridge crumbled, countless monsters fell into the abyss. System notifications flooded his vision, awarding him experience from their deaths. Soon, another message appeared. Level up to level 7. E rank. Gained 12 stat points. Please allocate them. Walking toward the far end of the bridge, Bai Yi thought to himself that most of the beasts had been dealt with. Suddenly, the surviving wolves and even the tundra bear leapt from the broken bridge, landing in front of him. Bai Yi's expression hardened. With the stamina he had left, he would have to deal with these last enemies. This was the fastest way to level up. System notification appeared. Obtained. Title 1 against 100. When fighting multiple enemies, all stats increase by 10%. Bai Yi steadied himself. He wondered why the den's final boss had not yet appeared. Every demon den had a leader. For an E-rank den, it should have been a beast like the brutal Lion King of E10. The commotion just now should have been enough to wake it. Why hadn't it shown itself? The wolves and the tundra bear roared and lunged at him. But at that moment, Bai Yi noticed something strange. Ice magic surged across the battlefield. His eyes widened in shock. This was ice magic. The ice instantly spread, freezing the wolves and even the tundra bear solid. Bai Yi realized his mistake too late. The boss had never been unconscious. It had been waiting for this exact opportunity, waiting for their stamina to be nearly depleted, waiting until they were gathered in this place with no escape. Bai Yi ran at full speed, trying to escape the ice, but a blast struck his foot, freezing it in place. Standing at the edge of the cliff, Bai Yi's body began to freeze from his legs upward. Panic filled his eyes. The ice bridge itself had been a trap created by the den's leader. Grinding his teeth in frustration, Bai Yi thought that this cave was hiding a leader with intelligence. At last, the true boss appeared. It was the cave lord, king of the Azure Forest, a level 11, Drank, Cloud Elemental Mage. Beside it was its lieutenant, a level 10, E-rank Cloud Demon Warrior known as the Azure Forest Demonic Monkey. The Cave Lord stared at Bai Yi with glowing red eyes. It grinned wickedly and let out a chilling, evil laugh. Bai Yi stood completely frozen, trapped by the boss's ice magic. He realized his body was losing heat rapidly, and the only way to free himself was to use all his energy to break the ice, a move that would drain nearly all his stamina. The boss pointed at him and commanded a subordinate to attack. A demonic monkey swung its weapon, but Bai Yi activated his block skill, reflecting the strike and slashing the monkey in the process. Wiping blood from his face, Bai Yi calculated that it would take the boss some time to cast such a powerful spell again. He had to take him down before then. With a mocking laugh, the boss raised its hand and commanded its subordinates forward. The tundra bear and a pack of wolves growled as they charged toward him. As the colossal tundra bear closed in, Bai Yi clenched his teeth, knowing that even defeating just 2 monkeys with his current stamina would be tough. In front of him, a horde of enemies waited. Demonic monkeys, bloodthirsty wolves, a hindrance bear, and the boss itself. He realized that if even more appeared, his chances of winning would be 0. One demonic monkey lunged, and Bai Yi blocked its attack. Immediately, another monkey charged at him. Within moments, it closed the distance and swung its weapon. While still defending against the first monkey, Bai Yi managed to block the second attack as well, but the impact forced him back a few steps. Exhausted and grinding his teeth, he admitted he couldn't muster any strength. Kneeling, battered, and on the verge of collapse, Bai Yi faced the shadowy boss atop a spiked tundra bear, while crimson-eyed wolves prowled under the eerie red hue of the sky. The boss let out an evil giggle and charged green energy into its staff, unleashing a devastating ice storm raid. Huge ice crystals rained down, leaving Bai Yi stunned, surprised at how quickly his skill cooldown had returned. But then, with determination in his eyes, he remembered his past life, how repeated hardships had honed his perception for fleeting opportunities. Right now, he had only 2 options. Option 1: stay and continue fighting. But his stamina was already at its limit, and even if he endured all the damage, surviving multiple high-level demonic beasts was impossible. Choosing option 2, Bai Yi turned, ran toward the cliff, and leaped off. The boss's attack struck him mid-air, freezing his entire body. Even the boss looked shocked as Bai Yi plunged over the edge. Bracing for impact, he fell completely frozen down the cliff. Back at his home, Bai Yi's mother came to check on him. Inside his room, she found a note and worried. It didn't make sense. If he were going to a friend's house, he would have told her directly. Ever since he returned home yesterday, she had felt a strange unease, sensing that something was different about him. In the demonic den, Bai Yi had survived the fall, lying half-submerged in a river. Grabbing a rock, he calculated the aftermath of his plan. When the ice bridge broke, nearly 100 demonic beasts had fallen. He had only leveled up 3 times, meaning roughly 60 were eliminated, and about 40 remained at the bottom of the cliff. There had to be a river below, making option 2 his only chance for survival. Breaking the ice had drained almost all his stamina, and the fall had caused severe damage to his body. The system window flashed status effects one after another: hypothermia, continuous blood loss, and weakened. Lying on the ground, bruised and battered, Bai Yi was totally exhausted. On the verge of collapse, he wondered if he had finally reached his limit.